host, The Stephen A. Smith Show, starts right now.
Everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News. 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up, as always, is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Quote, buy, and save on home insurance with Progressive's new Home Quote Explorer, only at Progressive.com. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. I'm going to get to the phone calls a little bit earlier today because I spent the entire show yesterday not taking one single phone call from my listeners, so I apologize for that. I had a lot of stuff going on yesterday, and obviously Tillman Fertitta, owner for the Houston Rockets, was kind enough to come on the show yesterday, so I definitely was preoccupied with a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll get to the calls a little bit earlier than usual today, particularly in the first hour. Hour number 2, my man Damien Woody will be on the show with us to jumpstart hour number 2. And a friend of mine, a friend of friends, former tennis player Vince Van Patten, the voice of World Tour, the World Poker Tour as well. I'm going to have him on the show talking to him just a few minutes, in hour number 2, so I'm looking forward to that. But the first order of business to get into today, there's a couple of things, and I'll get into Eli Manning, Daniel Jones with the New York Giants, Jamal Adams, what he had to say about the NFL after getting fined $21,000, what he had to say about the NFL and the state of the league playing for the New York Jets. I'll definitely talk about him as well and some of the things that he had to say. First order of business, however, is to get into Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why? Because it's Thursday night football. That's why. Why? Because when it comes to Thursday night football, the Tennessee Titans are scheduled to go up against the Jacksonville Jaguars tonight, Game 3 of this NFL season. It's a home game for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 0-2 and find themselves in somewhat desperate situations. The Jacksonville Jaguars have only won 2 of their last 14 games. The Jacksonville Jaguars, less than 2 years removed from an AFC championship game against the New England Patriots, are now considered to be a relatively dormant franchise, a franchise that's simply not getting the job done. And the name Tom Coughlin comes to mind, ladies and gentlemen. You know him very well in New York City. In New York, East Rutherford, New Jersey, to be exact, since that's where the Giants play. There was a Super Bowl championship with Tom Coughlin in 2007. There was another Super Bowl championship in 2011 from Tom Coughlin. Outside of those 2 years, the vast majority of the time, the New York Giants were outside of the playoffs looking in. They simply hadn't made it. And as a result, with former general manager Jerry Reese, with former head coach Ben McAdoo replacing him, Tom Coughlin ended up being the scapegoat, let go by the New York Giants, and utterly and completely disgusted by that. After a year-long sabbatical, he ended up as an executive VP with his old franchise, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And obviously, when you look at what transpired with that team, the way that team led by 55 takeaways, was just running roughshod over the league defensively. They had advanced to an AFC championship game, which some people think they should have won, but Blake Bortles was their quarterback, so you knew it was an accident that was waiting to happen. Ultimately, it did with his turnover-prone self, and as a result, the New England Patriots were able to survive and advance to the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles, a game in which they lost despite the fact that Tom Brady had passed for over 500 yards that game. Neither here nor there. Here's what this comes down to. The Jacksonville Jaguars have been a shell of themselves ever since. They went from 55 sacks to 37. Their takeaways plunged from 33 to 17 last season. And even though they were still recognized as the fourth best scoring defensive team, only allowing 19.8 a game, and ranked fifth in yards allowed at 311, you still felt like the wheels were coming off this franchise because their offense was so poor and so embarrassing, so ridiculous. The bottom line is they weren't going to win football games. And even after coming off the AFC Championship game, instead of taking care of 6 Pro Bowlers on the defensive side of the ball, which clearly carried them there, Tom Coughlin decided to take care of Blake Bortles. Gave him like a 3-year, $54 million deal. When that didn't pan out, you now have the Jacksonville Jaguars stuck in a situation where, you know what, just not to have Blake Bortles on their squad is costing them about $16.5 million. So what else do? They go in the offseason, they sign Nick Foles. Because Nick Foles led the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl victory over the New England Patriots. Nick Foles, after Carson Wentz, the better quarterback, went down again last year because he had gone down the year before, 13 games into the season of their Super Bowl run. Last year he comes out there and he gets hurt again. Nick Foles has to take over again. He leads them to victory in 3 of their final 4 games, leads them to a playoff victory over the Chicago Bears before losing to Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints in a divisional playoff game. And what does that do? That parlays Nick Foles into getting an exorbitant contract from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he goes down to injury in week 1. And so as a result of that, you're Jalen Ramsey, you're already frustrated enough because you were drafted 5th overall in 2016. Guys like Jared Goff, like a Carson Wentz, like Ezekiel Elliott were all drafted before you in the top 5. All 3 of them got paid. Ezekiel Elliott, $50 million guarantees, a near $100 million deal. Carson Wentz, $107 million in guaranteed. Jared Goff, $110 million in guarantees. Jalen Ramsey's making $3.6 million. Wanted to renegotiate his deal. Tom Coughlin wasn't trying to hear that. As a result, you're frustrated enough in and of itself. But then you turn around after all of that, and what do they do now? Doug Marrone, Mr. Unproven, Mr. Can't Get It Done, literally at the helm while things are falling apart, decides that we're going to play Jalen Ramsey more zone than man-to-man, even though he clearly excels man-to-man. You saw what he did to DeAndre Hopkins last week. And so not only are you compromising him and his individual excellence, you're turning around and you're losing games. So Jalen Ramsey's completely frustrated. He doesn't want to talk. Doug Marrone, as the coach, tried to talk to him, got in his face. What happened? I'll tell you what's happening. It's not really about Doug Marrone. It's really about Tom Coughlin. From what I'm being told, from what I've been told this morning, Jalen Ramsey doesn't want to play for Tom Coughlin and anything associated with Tom Coughlin. I wonder where we've heard that before. That appears to be the case right now. But according to Doug Marrone, all is well. Listen to him talk about his meeting with Jalen Ramsey over the last 24 hours and being ready for tonight's game. Listen to Doug Marrone, head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I mean, Jalen and I have always had a good, open relationship where we've always been able to talk. We sat down yesterday, we talked about, what's going on as far as he and I, and, it's like anything else in this profession. It's behind us now. His focus is on playing and being doing the best job for his teammates. My job is being able to do the best job for the team. So, that's behind us right now.
Here's the problem. Doug Marrone ain't doing the best thing for the team. They started off last season, 2018, 3-1. Then lost 7 straight. Kansas City, Dallas, Houston, Philadelphia, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Buffalo Bills. Of their last 5 games of the regular season, they lost 3 of them. Tennessee, Washington, Houston. Only victories were against the Colts and the Dolphins. And then this season thus far, they've started out losing their first 2 games. So you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're Jalen Ramsey. You're on a 5-year rookie deal. You're trying to get paid. They're sticking out their chest, letting you know they got you on lock until 2021, and they don't give a damn how you feel. You ain't getting paid, even though you're the best cornerback in football right now. You ain't getting paid, even though others in your draft class are getting paid. And while you're not getting paid, we're also going to compromise your greatness as a cornerback in man-to-man coverage by putting you in zone. All the while we're losing 12 of our last 14 games. And we're wondering why this man has a problem. Now, I'm the first one to sit up there and say, you got to conduct yourself professionally, exercising professional decorum along the way. I'm the first one to say that. Because I think that's important, particularly when you're young and African-American, because unfortunately, the actions of the few taint the many. And regardless of how unfair it may be, because that's a reality, you got to think about more than just yourself. There ain't a day that goes by that is not somebody I want to curse out. Let me be very, very clear. But you can't do that in the world of corporate America. Now, obviously, the world of athletics and professional sports is a little bit different, but the bottom line is same stuff still applies. When Antonio Brown is acting like a clown in Oakland, to do that while a collective bargaining agreement is going on is egregious, and it's selfish, and it compromises the objective of the players and their respective agents. That's a problem. And that level of selfishness should never be tolerated. It's inexcusable. And when you see Jalen Ramsey on the sideline jumping up and snapping at his coach after his coach got in his face, that's not a good look. So it's important to say that. It's not advisable either. It's important to say that. But let's understand something here. Jalen Ramsey and Antonio Brown can't be compared. Antonio Brown was playing in Pittsburgh, threw Mike Tomlin under the bus, threw Juju Smith-Schuster under the bus by revealing private DMs, gets to Oakland, gets his guaranteed money. Now the game is played. He's whining and crying over bad feet, showing them nasty yellowish layers of coated yellowness on his feet because of some cryotherapy in France that was nobody's fault but his own. Then you come out and you got a helmet issue. You got an issue with the helmets that the NFL is mandating that you wear. They didn't tell you to wear one specific helmet. They gave you 40 different options. You got 89 dudes on a roster. Over 28 players on the roster in the preseason at the time that you were complaining about the helmet, and only one player, one, was threatening to retire and beefing and whining and moaning and filing grievances against the NFL that he knew damn well he couldn't win. That was Antonio Brown. And even after he got his guaranteed money, then getting in the face of his GM, calling them a cracker. That's what he called them. They called it what they say, even though they tried to deny it. Then he turned around after that. Supposed to have a meeting with John Gruden. Doesn't show up for the meeting. Drew Rosenhaus gets John Gruden and Antonio Brown on three-way, and Antonio Brown records the damn conversation and puts it on YouTube. And got some videographer giving interviews talking about you got Gruden's permission. Well, what the hell were you doing taping the call to begin with? We didn't bring that up. Now, you might have got Gruden's permission to reveal it on social media thereafter, but while you were taping the phone call and ultimately revealed that phone call You didn't let him know at that time, and by the way, that's illegal in the state of California. Can't tape without a consent of both parties. But that's neither here nor there because we know that Gruden wasn't going to do anything about that. The point is, there's some egregious, childish, immature, very selfish acts on the part of Antonio Brown. That is not the case here with Jalen Ramsey. That's a different ballgame. Jalen Ramsey wants to get paid, and Jalen Ramsey wants to win. And if you can't do both, how the hell you going to then turn around and still ask him to compromise himself by having him do something that doesn't point to the level of excellence that he could put on display, which would justify the dollars he covets? If the dude is a cover corner and very elite at what he does, and I'm here to tell you, he's got the blessings in terms of the validation aimed in his direction by none other than primetime Deion Sanders. Both of them played at Florida State. Both of them were elite corners. Deion Sanders is the best that I've ever seen. As far as I'm concerned, considering the multitude of things that he does, I think it's a legitimate argument that can be made that primetime Deion Sanders is the best football player to have ever lived. Because how many dudes could do offense, defense, and special teams? Deion Sanders did that. He was an elite returner, kick or punts. He could play wide receiver, just ask Michael Irvin. And oh, by the way, there's unquestionably, he was such an elite cover corner, you literally shut off one side of the football field because he was covering it by his damn self. So if we understand all of that, this arguably is the best to have ever lived. And he's vouching for Jalen Ramsey. Let's keep that in perspective and understand that. Understand that. Jalen Ramsey's right to one out. He's right to ask for a trade. And I think a highlight and a spotlight should be put on what the hell is Tom Coughlin doing down in Jacksonville. I mean, somebody wants to know. You come from a defensive background, but you taking care of a bunch of people on offense, ignoring your defensive players. What's that about? I understand. In my personal opinion, Tom Coughlin was scapegoated out of New York. I never agreed with how that went down. But that doesn't mean the man's perfect. It doesn't mean there are things he could not have done better. Let's keep that in mind. Let's be honest about that. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. It's going to be an interesting game in Jacksonville. I'd love to pick them to win the game, but I think with Minshew, I don't think their offense is going to do much. Now, some would argue they could have beat Houston last week when they lost 13-12. If you had just given him the ball instead of giving it to Leonard Fournette to try to convert a two-point conversion, and this dude forgets to stretch the football out so it could go across the goal line. And Leonard Fournette is another story for another day. Derrick Henry been balling since he dropped 238 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns against Jacksonville in Tennessee last year. Leonard Fournette, not so much. When's the last time he's had a 100-yard rushing game? Inquiring minds would like to know. I think it's like some January 2018, maybe a little bit earlier, but I'm not sure. But I know it's been a while since he ran for 100 yards. He's averaging 4 yards a carry, which is up from the 3.7 he was averaging last year while running the football. But Leonard Fournette's health has been questionable and his running ability. Here's my thing. He's a stud. He's a man-child, but he's not evasive. He's a power runner. And I don't think longevity and durability speaks glowingly about Leonard Fournette. So you got a questionable running game. You damn sure got a questionable passing game because you don't really have a quarterback, even though Minshew can run with the football and he's a good deep ball thrower. 25% of his passes thus far, by the way, have been behind the line of scrimmage. So I don't know if we can point to his accuracy and brag about it, even though he's capable of throwing a deep ball. But in the end, what it comes down to is that when you look at Jacksonville, they don't have much of an offense. Period. Another reason Jalen Ramsey should be frustrated. Another reason. I expect Tennessee to win this game because I think Tennessee is a hell of a lot better than people have given them credit for. Just ask the Cleveland Browns. Just ask them. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. That's one of the stories I want to talk about. The other was the New York Giants. Starting Daniel Jones, Eli Manning displaying nothing but class yesterday when interviewed by folks in the aftermath of learning that he was being benched in favor of a rookie just 3 games into the season. Now, let me say this, ladies and gentlemen. I have no problem with the move. I love the fact that Pat Shurmur, because he's the one that went to Gettleman, He's the one that went to John Mara and said, I want to put this guy in. He stood up at the press conference. Beautiful article written in the Daily News by Pat Leonard, I believe, today, talking about how Pat Shermer is owning this decision. I think that was a damn good article, and I think that's a damn good angle to take. Having said all of that, Pat Shermer's got to step up and get it done too. But I like the fact that Daniel Jones has started because I don't believe Eli Manning should even be there any longer. I think his days are done, at least with the New York Giants. But he has always been class personified. And when it comes to respect, he clearly deserves it. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion, two-time MVP. And yesterday, yet again, he displayed nothing short of class in expressing his support and how he's going to sit around and counsel and tutor Daniel Jones to the best of his ability. That speaks a lot about Eli. Point number 3, Jamal Adams for the New York Jets, going off about the NFL. Didn't know he was playing two-hand touch. Thought he was playing tackle football in the National Football League after being fined $21,000 for hitting Baker Mayfield after Baker Mayfield had thrown the ball. Here's my suggestion. Defensive players need to stop complaining. I know it ain't right. NFL a little bit too soft. You know, they too protective of the quarterback and what have you, but you know they are. Their belief is that it's about dollars and cents. It's about revenue generating. It's a revenue-generating sport. And when quarterbacks go down, that compromises the bottom line of the sport. They got to protect the quarterback at all costs. So with that being the situation, understand that and do everything you can to refrain from hitting the quarterback late. Here's what I would say, and I would propose to the NFL, however, on behalf of defensive players who have just been hamstrung to the nth degree. Emphasize avoiding the head and shots below to the knee and below the knee. Emphasize that. Penalize that at every turn to the best of your ability. And get the dudes focused on hitting below the chin and above the knee. And if they do that, be a little bit more lenient. No matter the hurts, no matter the hits, at the end of the day, if you hit cats, all right, enforce 2 things. Hits below the chin and above the knee. Avoid headshots, avoid shots to the knees and lower, and avoid driving folks into the ground. You can hit them down, but when you push your body into them and press your body on them as they're on the turf, that's problematic. Get dudes to avoid those 3 things, the headshots, shots to the knees and below, and driving them into the ground. And instead, encourage shots below the chin and above the knee. I think you got something there that could really, really help the league. Maybe they're not focused so much on every little thing and protecting the quarterback, and they'll let a hit like Jamal Adams placed on Baker Mayfield Monday night slide. Just a suggestion, y'all. Just a suggestion. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. That was Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less only at Walmart. Like I said, I'm getting to your phone calls for the rest of the hour. So feel free to call in at 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, did you know overall job satisfaction is at its highest level in 15 years? Wow, 51%. Wait, what? The only statistical category that Eli Manning has led anybody in at any point in time in his career is interceptions. I believe that was on 3 separate occasions. Before I rushed to work, I had an opportunity to watch my brother Chris Carter and his man Nick Wright, First Things First on Fox. I know they're the competition, but that's my brother Chris Carter there. So on occasion, when I get an opportunity to, I watch him, and giving credit to Nick, because I ain't trying to steal nobody's thunder, he pointed out how Eli Manning ain't in top 5 in anything in his career. It's true. So when you look at all of those things, all of those ingredients, and you take all of those things into consideration, let's call it what it is. There's nothing about Eli Manning's regular season record that warrants him being in the Hall of Fame. But he has produced in the postseason. He's going into San Francisco. He's won a game. He's going to Green Bay. He's won a playoff game. He's won 2 Super Bowl championships. Both of them was over Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Now, I could make the argument that didn't help Tom Coughlin keep his job in New York. Why the hell should it help Eli? But that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is Eli Manning's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. And when Joe Namath, with a career QBR that would equate to about a 65 in his career, is in the Hall of Fame, I'll be damned if Eli Manning doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Yes, he does. He absolutely does. It's undeniable. We have to give credit where credit is due in that regard. Career 60% completion percentage, over 50,000 yards passing, 2-time Super Bowl champion, big-time playoff victories along the way, a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. He's in the Hall of Fame. Not in the elite room of the Hall of Fame, but he's up there. He's in there. But in the end, it is appropriate that the New York Giants made this call. It is appropriate that they decided to go in this direction. Because, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we don't want to admit it, the fans are owed something. And if there's one thing every fan should have a license to demand, is hope.
Well, let's be clear about something. Me and my agent, we are not the ones who leak that information.
When he walked over to get in the face of a player, that's an issue. That means that there's a relationship there that there's no repair for.
It is what it is. I think everybody, for the most part, knows what's up, and I'm going to focus on what I can focus on.
I mean, listen, he's handled it terribly, to be quite honest with you.
For all the issues the Jacksonville Jaguars have, and they are plentiful, it doesn't feel like it's not salvageable if they could just get their bleep together.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
If you missed any of my opening segment, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Quicksilver Card, earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. Hey, what's in your wallet? Also, from the biggest concerts and games to the hottest theater shows and more, Vivid Seats has it all. Download the app and join the Vivid Seats Rewards loyalty program today. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Let me take a moment to give my colleague and buddy, Josina Anderson, some props. Doing an outstanding job covering for the NFL, for the family, as always. Josina Anderson is reporting that she's connected with Jalen Ramsey, or at least those close to him. Forgive me if I don't know which one that is, but knowing her, probably both. And apparently there are several teams that have reached out and contacted the Jacksonville Jaguars about Jalen Ramsey. They would happen to be, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, the Minnesota Vikings, the Oakland Raiders, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Philadelphia Eagles. Ladies and gentlemen, where would you prefer Jalen Ramsey to end up? Particularly if the Super Bowl is what you're after. Now, obviously, number one on my list would be the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, if New England's got Antonio Brown, they're the clear-cut favorites to win it all. But if you acquire Jalen Ramsey and you buffet your defense if you're Andy Reid, with that offense led by Patrick Mahomes, especially if Tyreek Hill comes back, Lord have mercy. We got an AFC championship game in the making. I mean, you thought last year was special. This year might be even better. And the Baltimore Ravens would obviously be the third team on the outside looking in. But if they got him to buffer their defense, Lord, but I still don't think it helps their offense enough. I still don't think it's enough. I tell you what my second choice would be. Of all those teams, it would be the Philadelphia Eagles. It would be the Philadelphia Eagles. See, the problem with the Philadelphia Eagles is health. And Carson Wentz is the biggest culprit because, damn it, learn how to get down, learn how to get rid of the ball quicker. Stop putting yourself in positions to get hurt. I mean, Carson Wentz, you almost get to the point where you almost want to beat him up because he's so good. He's so talented. All you're asking him to do is to prioritize staying healthy. Stop putting yourself in positions to get hurt yet again. 2 straight years. You missed the playoffs. And you're an MVP caliber talent. 2 straight years you missed the postseason. And now, damn it, he's contaminated the team. Deshaun Jackson's hurt. Alshon Jeffrey got hurt. I mean, who else? To the phones we go. Willie, you're live at Stephen A. Talk to me. What's up, Will?
Hey, what's up, Stephen A., man?
Willie,
Love the show, man. Real quick, man, I want to make a couple of points, man. Jalen Ramsey, you rattled off the teams that are interested. I actually heard last week that the Raiders were interested in him. And I talked to you before. I'm a Raiders fan, so I would love to see him out in Oakland.
I mentioned the Raiders are on this list. Raiders on this list.
Yeah, I had heard that as well last week. And secondly, man, as far as the Jaguars go,
who cares? You don't want him with the Raiders, do you?
Oh, that's my team, Stephen A.
Oh, you're a Raiders fan. Okay, all right. Go ahead.
I ain't a Cowboy fan.
That's good.
So anyway,
that's an improvement. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the Jaguars, man, they're definitely a shell of themselves, man. I think that whenever they signed Blake Bortles to that extension a few years ago, that might have handicapped them a little bit, even though when they gave them the guaranteed dollars, and that's the guaranteed dollars were up, that's when they got rid of them. But I think, man, there was some internal strife, man, between those players on that team when he got paid. And then thus far, man, the offense, as you stated, and struggled, man. They don't really have a wide receiving core that you just are just scared of. Leonard Fournette, man,
I got you.
He's a power runner, but like you said, man, that's not going to bode well for him in the long run. So I'll hang up with you now, man. Appreciate it.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you calling. And secondly, all you got to do is say you listen to what I said and you're echoing my sentiments. That's exactly what I said in segment number 1. That's all. I appreciate the call, though. Thank you so much. Let's go to Andre. You're live at Stephen A. What's up?
Yes, Stephen A., thanks for taking my call. Jalen Ramsey, it'd be good to see him go to the Chiefs. I like him going to the Chiefs, the Eagles, or the Seahawks. 3 good teams have opportunity to compete. But as far as Tom Coughlin's concerned, he need to put some respect on that man's name when he talks about him. We need some respect on Tom Coughlin's name, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, they lost their most important player in Nick Foles in the first quarter. Okay, the man was 5 for 8, 95 yards and a touchdown. You lose your most important player in the first quarter of the first game. Okay, then you're competitive with Kansas City. Gardner Minshew had a good game.
Stop.
2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Stop right there. I said stop. Listen. It's not about putting respect on Tom Coughlin's name. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Of course he gets respect. It's about paying attention to the complaints that once existed in New York, the Plexico Burrises of the world and others. If you don't arrive 5 minutes early, you're late. It's all of these little things. Then you go to Jacksonville. Before Nick Foles, you gave Blake Bortles money. Fresh off an AFC championship berth that was guided by an elite defense with 6 Pro Bowlers, and you didn't take care of any of them. You chose to take care of a highly suspect quarterback, which the entire team had zero faith in. So that kind of stuff is what we're talking about here. Let's not get all nostalgic and engage in revisionist history. Nobody is saying that Tom Coughlin's done everything wrong. What we're saying is that the things that has been complained about as it pertains to him have now traveled from New York to Jacksonville. That's the complaint. To that you say what?
I hear what you're saying, and those complaints, fine. But, again, you have to give it time, and they did lose their most important player. Back to New York just quickly. Anybody wants to complain, then take those 2 damn Super Bowl rings off. A little bit with Eli, him going down in the class.
Really? That's what you're doing? Let me ask you a question. When was that Super Bowl? Wasn't it 2007? And wasn't it 2011? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been some time, but there was 2 of them.
How old are you? I asked you to answer my question. How old are you?
I'm 37 years young.
All right, you're 37. You're still a puppy, okay? And the fact of the matter is 2011 was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. So you can't be coming up to, this Super Bowl. Well, John Gruden had a Super Bowl in 2002. And cats are looking at him and saying, what the hell did he do to deserve $100 million? You didn't have a right to ask that question? You can't sit up there and respect somebody for what they accomplished, but also point out some of their struggles when it's evident? You can't do that?
Okay, indeed, point the struggles out, but also at the same, in terms of Jacksonville, it needs time is my overall argument, and they did lose their most important.
Are you a Jacksonville fan?
No, I'm coming from the great state of New Jersey, so I root for the Eagles, by the way. But I respect what was going on in Jacksonville. The man just needs some time. And
How could you respect? Hold on. How can you respect what's going on when they've lost 12 of their last 14 games?
They lost their most important player in the first quarter of this season. Nick Foles is their most important player.
If you don't be quiet, you're gonna hear a dial tone. I said 12 or 14. I'm not talking about the last game and a half. They've been losing. And you gave Blake Bortles money, and you didn't take care of any of your dudes on defense. By the way, I'm tired of talking to you. Bye. Let's go to Dan. You're live with Stephen A. Go ahead. I gave him enough time. Go ahead, Dan.
Hey, Stephen A., how you doing? Yeah, I heard Tyreek Hill 2 days ago tweeted that if Jalen Ramsey could come here, it would be great if they could pull it off. What do you think?
I'd love it because, really, when you think about it, with New England having Antonio Brown, if Kansas City gets an elite corner like Ramsey, you're basically sending a message that you're coming for New England, which all of us will look forward to. My only hope is that with that, us looking forward to that AFC Championship game matchup, what I do not want to happen is for the rest of the NFC to have nobody to compete with the Super Bowl. I don't want the AFC Championship game to be our Super Bowl. I want to look forward to championship games in both conferences, recognizing that somebody from the NFC has an opportunity to beat one of those teams because we perceive them as being good enough. So believe it or not, I'm hoping Dallas is legit. I'm hoping New England's legit. I'm hoping the Rams are legit. I'm hoping that Green Bay continues to show us they've got a defense. Because I know Aaron Rodgers is legit. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I know the Chiefs have a good offense, and with Steve Spagnuolo's defense, because he knows how to pressure Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. He knows how to coach against Tom Brady. Take care of yourself, Stephen A. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You do the same. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back with your calls to close out hour number 1 before my man Damien Woody comes on to start off hour number 2. Don't touch that dial. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
Your radio, your computer, your phone.
It's always great to have my next guest on the line, former Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously a tremendous NFL analyst for ESPN. Does a phenomenal job for us on NFL Live. Shows up on First Take several times a week. Catch him on SportsCenter, particularly on Sunday evenings after the games. Doing a great, great job for us. I'm talking about the one and only Ryan Clark. He's live right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. What's up, big boy? How are you, man?
What's up, my man? How you doing?
All right, what the hell was up with today, man, when you just had on a V-neck shirt and you didn't have on no shirt and tie or whatever? What's up with that? You trying to flex and show everybody how much shape you in compared to the rest of us? I mean, what was that about, Ryan?
I've been in the gym, man. I've been in the gym, and the people need to know. The people, hey.
Ryan, who am I to talk? I'll be looking for you in about 2 months. I'll be looking for you in about 2 months, Ryan. I need all the help I can get, bro. I need all the help I can get. Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A. at ESPN. Listen, Ryan, you heard the news about the Giants electing to bench Eli Manning in favor of Daniel Jones. What was your initial reaction? How do you feel about it now?
Say it again, my man. I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
I said you heard the news about Eli Manning being benched in favor of Daniel Jones. How did you feel about it then? Yesterday, how do you feel about it now?
Should have happened a long time ago. I think, a lot of people understood that Daniel Jones earned this. You understand what Eli has done for this team and for this organization, but don't you think we let this go on about 4 years too long? And you go out, you draft Daniel Jones, and this is a guy you want to sit, but he shows you throughout the offseason and OTAs and training camp and preseason that he's ready to play. And what they did now was they sent Eli out there. They showed us that this team isn't good enough to win, that Eli isn't good enough to be the starting quarterback of the New York Giants. And so now we know the expectations are so low that Daniel Jones can't fail. But I believe if you started with Daniel Jones, this team would have a different hope, a different excitement, and move in a different way than it has these first 2 games. So to me, this decision is 3 weeks too late.
Show on ESPN. To Coast. The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the national airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News, 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, prep your engine for winter with Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil. The first motor oil made from natural gas, not crude oil. The proof is in the Pennzoil. Also, the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Always a privilege to have my next guest on the line. NFL analyst extraordinaire for ESPN, contributor on a weekly basis to First Take. Catch him on NFL Live as well, former two-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots. Only reason he wanted to play with the Jets was because he's from the New York tri-state area, New Jersey, whatever. There ain't no way in hell you can want to go from the New England Patriots to the New York Jets for any other reason. Got 2 rings with the Patriots. We know better than him having that with the New York Jets. But he's still an outstanding analyst. My buddy, the one and only Damien Woody. What's going on, big time? How are you, man?
I'm good, man. That was a really good introduction, Steve. Man, I really appreciate that.
Not a problem at all. Let's get to this, Damien. Your thoughts about Jalen Ramsey? He's going to play in a Jacksonville Jaguars uniform tonight against the Tennessee Titans on Thursday Night Football. It's expected. He's expecting this to be his last game. Your thoughts about how him demanding to be traded, him requesting a trade rather. Your thoughts about his situation in Jacksonville and whether or not he should even be playing tonight.
Well, first of all, unlike basketball where you have a lot more games, in football you only have 16. The Jacksonville Jaguars are sitting at 0-2 right now, and for the Jaguars, you have to put it all out there. I understand the trade rumors, and it's looking more and more like Jalen Ramsey is going to be traded. But right in the immediacy right now, you need all the bodies you have in order to win a football game. That's got to be the singular focus for the Jacksonville Jaguars. As far as the trade situation is, I think this is a situation where the relationship between Jalen Ramsey and Tom Coughlin, who runs the organization. They've been butting heads for a while, particularly in the offseason. Jalen Ramsey is the type of guy that, he likes to work out in his own hometown in Nashville, Tennessee. And, they've been bumping heads for a while, showing up, Jalen Ramsey showing up to training camp in the Brinks truck. I'm sure that Tom Coughlin didn't like that look heading into training camp. So, I think it's just spilled over to the point where a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who's a superstar in this league, is just flexing. Now he's just flexing his muscle and trying to force a trade.
Josina Anderson reported the Kansas City Chiefs, Baltimore Ravens, Minnesota Vikings, Oakland Raiders, Seattle Seahawks, and the Philadelphia Eagles have all called to inquire about the services of Jalen Ramsey. Where would be the best scenario for him and why?
Well, I've said, could you imagine Jalen Ramsey as a Kansas City Chief? I mean, my goodness, you put Jalen Ramsey on that defense, which, if you watch the Kansas City Chiefs over the past couple of years, it's been pedestrian at best, particularly in the back end and the secondary. You put him on that defense, a guy who's a man-to-man cover corner guy who can lock it down, control the half of the side of the field on the defensive side. Boy, you're talking about boosting your chances as a Kansas City Chiefs to try to represent the AFC in a Super Bowl. Baltimore is also an intriguing option because we all know that the Ravens have been known for defense for years, and they have Earl Thomas at safety, who's a perennial Pro Bowler. So you put Jalen Ramsey in that secondary. That would tremendously help out that Baltimore Ravens defense. So I would say the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens are two intriguing options for me.
Kansas City or Baltimore, is that the only scenario in which you envision somebody having the potential to knock off these New England Patriots?
I look when I look at the landscape of the AFC. I mean, those two teams are the ones that that really stick out right now. Granted, this is we're in September. We have a long ways to go. Injuries can factor in, and all those type of things. But when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, listen, the firepower that they have on offense, and obviously starts with Patrick Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill is out, but when he comes back, it's just going to be another piece that's going to be, pretty much unstoppable for the Kansas City Chiefs. Sammy Watkins is looking like the Sammy Watkins of old, and Travis Kelce at tight end, Damien Williams at running back. So they have all the pieces. And then when you talk about the Baltimore Ravens, obviously Lamar Jackson is lighting the league up right now, granted against, the Miami Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals, but still, the way that Lamar Jackson has been playing has just been lights out, particularly as it relates to throwing the football. And obviously any Baltimore team, you're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens defense. So combine those two aspects, and right now you got to look at Kansas City Chiefs and Baltimore Ravens right now, the teams in the AFC that could possibly give the New England Patriots trouble.
We're talking to Damien Woody, NFL analyst for ESPN, right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. One of the things that I'm worried about, let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, that Jalen Ramsey ended up on the Kansas City Chiefs. Not only would it be a foregone conclusion in the minds of many that it will be Kansas City and New England in the AFC Championship game, I think the downside to that is that you'll have a lot of people looking at that and calling it the Super Bowl because they'll think that nobody from the NFC could compete. Is that your perspective when it comes to the possibility of Jalen Ramsey ending up as a Kansas City Chief or whatever? Or do you look at the NFC as having real viable candidates that can challenge for a Super Bowl title, can challenge Kansas City, can challenge a healthy New England Patriots squad? Which is your view? Which is your view on that?
No, I think there's viable teams in the NFC that will be able to challenge any AFC team. Granted, New England is New England. They got the greatest coach-quarterback combination in NFL history, so everyone knows what you're dealing with when you're talking about the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs. You got the league MVP in Patrick Mahomes and maybe the greatest play caller we've seen in Andy Reid. So we all know about that. But Stephen, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to keep pounding it. The Dallas Cowboys are for real. Dallas Cowboys have one of the best rosters. Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, has been outstanding as far as play design and setting up Dak Prescott. Look really good. John Kennedy, the quarterback and coach, has done a great job with Dak Prescott as far as his mechanics, and we haven't even talked about Zeke Elliott getting going really yet. Once he gets into football shape and gets going, that's going to add a whole nother dimension to the Dallas Cowboys. So I think Dallas Cowboys, the Los Angeles Rams, they're teams in the NFC. The Green Bay Packers at some point. Think about this, Stephen A. The Green Bay Packers really are being carried by their defense. And they have the great Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. What's going to happen when Aaron Rodgers get going? So there are teams in the NFC that I think when it's all said and done will be right there to contend along with those two teams in the AFC that we've talked about.
What about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Philadelphia Eagles they're another team. Right now, Philadelphia Eagles they're just slammed with injuries really early on. It's September. I mean, you're talking Deshaun Jackson. They got a lot of guys that are injured right now, and obviously, when you think of the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz comes to mind. Is he going to be able to stay healthy a whole season? But no one can deny Doug Peterson as being one of the better head coaches in the National Football League. It's one of the more talented rosters in the National Football League. If these guys can get healthy, they'll absolutely challenge the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC and will be one of the teams competing to come out of the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Damien Woody right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's stick within the NFC East for us on another topic. The Giants obviously decided to make the move to Daniel Jones, electing to bench Eli Manning. Pat Shurmur went up to Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman and Pat Shurmur spoke to ownership. They okayed it, but clearly Pat Shurmur is standing alone on an island. Even when he spoke to the media about it, Gettleman wasn't in attendance. Co-owner John Mara was not in attendance. This is clearly Shurmur's decision, and they're allowing him to make it. What do you think about his decision, and how do you think it may end up panning out?
I think Pat Shurmur wanted to, if it were up to Pat Shurmur, I think he would have started the season with Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback. I think this was a situation where, the owner and John Mara, they brought Eli back. They could have easily cut Eli in the offseason. They brought him back. And, Eli Manning started the season as a starting quarterback. But I think, once you look at his team, particularly the defense, took everything into account. The defense, they're going to struggle all year on defense. They're not going to be able to stop anybody. And you look at what's going on offense, obviously a couple, wide receivers suspended, injuries at wide receiver, and just look at how limited Eli Manning is at the quarterback position. I think Pat Shurmur just looked at the situation like, you know what? We're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I want to get going on the future of this franchise with Daniel Jones, especially after the way he played in the preseason.
How do you believe he'll fare against Tampa's defense Sunday?
Well, listen, I think, with that defense being led by Todd Bowles, the new defensive coordinator, it's an attacking defense. They'll come from anywhere. This is not your traditional Tampa Bay defense where it's, the four down, the Tampa 2 that Tony Dungy made famous down in Tampa. This is now more of a multiple defense, 3-4 type of defense where they can come from anywhere. So Daniel Jones, he'll have his work cut out for him. But the one thing that Daniel Jones will bring to the table that Eli just doesn't have right now is, A, his ability to move around. He's a very athletic, mobile quarterback. And 2, his ability to push the ball down the field. That was one of the main complaints of Odell Beckham Jr., the former Giant, was that Eli couldn't get the ball to him. Daniel Jones can. So those are 2 things that we should see out of the New York Football Giants.
Damien Woody right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. One of the other things that I wanted to touch on as this show progresses, we talked about Daniel Jones. We've talked about Jalen Ramsey. We didn't talk about Jamal Adams for the New York Jets. Obviously, he has some very, very strong opinions about the National Football League and them fining him $21,000 for his hit on Baker Mayfield. He and many, many others on the defensive side of the ball over the years have complained about how they've been hamstrung by the National Football League. Your thoughts about what he had to say and why?
Well, listen, first of all, I am a huge fan of Jamal Adams. I think Jamal Adams plays the game the right way. He's one of the best players in the National Football League. But he has what Jamal Adams has to understand is whether he likes or not, the quarterback position is the most important position in sports. People tune in to watch the quarterbacks. And that hit that Jamal Adams got fined on with in regards to Baker Mayfield, I think it's questionable. It's questionable at best. But the league has made it adamant that they're going to try to protect the quarterback as much as possible. Now, I think where the league gets in problems is the consistency as in how they call these these hits, how they levy the fines. There's absolutely inconsistencies as far as how the league goes about it. But make no mistake about it, they're going to protect the quarterbacks at all costs.
Do you think the league, I mean, we've alluded to this, the league being excessive on television earlier today on the show First Take with yours truly and Max and Molly, and you were there as well. I pointed out how if you're the league, here's a way to kind of remedy some of these situations and the complaints on the part of the defense. Okay, no headshots, no shots below the knee. Tackle, from the chin down to right above the knee. If you can limit yourself to that, we won't be fixated on every little thing that you do to a quarterback or anybody else for that matter. Just tackle or hit in those areas. So at least we got a better chance of these guys being around and not having to leave games for weeks or months at a time. What do you say to that idea?
Well, I mean, listen, I like that. The problem is the consistency. I mean, you have a hit like Jamal Adams against Baker Mayfield, but then, the hit that took Nick Foles out for weeks, there was nothing. No call, no fine, nothing. And to me, that's the biggest issue that I have with the league is let's be consistent across the board. I mean, listen, it's already the defensive guys are already at a disadvantage, but let's just be consistent in how we call and how we levy these fines because it's just not fair to these guys on that side of the ball, especially when they got to make snap decisions at the blink of an eye.
What are your thoughts about the fact that the Patriots are going against the Jets this week and the Cowboys are going against the Dolphins? The Patriots are 23-point favorites. The Cowboys are 21-point favorites. And it's the first time since 1987 that two teams have been 20-plus point underdogs the same week. And the only other time that's happened was in 1987 when a strike was taking place and the NFL had replacement players. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think when I look at those two games, they're two different scenarios. Obviously, with the Jets, they've been ravaged with injuries, and obviously the quarterback, Sam Darnold, has mono. So that's just something that we've really never seen before as it relates to, a player that stature getting mono. That's something that the Jets have no control over. But as far as the Dolphins is concerned, listen, I clearly this is a tanking situation. It's a total rebuild. I understand that the Dolphins are trying to hit the reset button, but at the same time, I think that, Dominic Foxworth, who was on First Take, and y'all were talking about. I think y'all might have been talking about this. I think you're putting your players in a bad predicament. You're setting, first of all, the veteran guys who are there. You're hurting not only their future as far as where they, putting good tape out there, because you're playing next to bad players. If you ask any former player, regardless of how good you are, if you're playing next to bad, players that aren't good, that are not supposed to be there, guess what? It brings you down. So you're hurting possibly their future employment with other teams because you decided to start tanking. And on top of that, you could possibly setting guys up where they getting injured out there because of the guys that you're putting out there that shouldn't be playing. So,
so what can be done about it, Damien? What can be done? What can be done about it?
That's Stephen A. I wish I had the answer. It's not like basketball as far as tanking. Football it's a violent contact sport, and so when you have a front office, taking one approach where they're trying to accumulate, draft capital and build towards the future, I think the product on the field is terrible, and it's bad for everybody. Bad for the fans. It's bad for the players. It's bad for the coach because who's to say that you do all of this, and if you're the coach, that you're going to have the opportunity to see this whole thing through? Okay, a lot of times with these billionaire owners, they get tired, and they say, you know what? We want to switch this. I want to get rid of this whole staff and bring in a new staff and let them finish the process. So this whole thing stinks, in my opinion.
Damien Woody, appreciate you, man. Looking forward to tonight's game. Who you got, Tennessee or Jacksonville?
I got Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're desperate, and I got the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Appreciate you, my man. We'll talk soon, buddy. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too now.
The one and only Damien Woody right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, when it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need to get to a short list of your qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screening questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why more than... The only statistical category that Eli Manning has led anybody in at any point in time in his career is interceptions. I believe that was on 3 separate occasions. Before I rushed to work, I had an opportunity to watch my brother Chris Carter and his man Nick Wright, First Things First on Fox. I know they're the competition, but that's my brother Chris Carter there. So on occasion, when I get an opportunity to, I watch him, and giving credit to Nick, because I ain't trying to steal nobody's thunder, he pointed out how Eli Manning ain't in top 5 in anything in his career. It's true. So when you look at all of those things, all of those ingredients, and you take all of those things into consideration, let's call it what it is. There's nothing about Eli Manning's regular season record that warrants him being in the Hall of Fame. But he has produced in the postseason. He's gone into San Francisco. He's won a game. He's gone to Green Bay. He's won a playoff game. He's won 2 Super Bowl championships. Both of them was over Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Now, I could make the argument that didn't help Tom Coughlin keep his job in New York. Why the hell should it help Eli? But that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is Eli Manning's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. And when Joe Namath, with a career QBR that would equate to about a 65 in his career, is in the Hall of Fame, I'll be damned if Eli Manning doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Yes, he does. He absolutely does. It's undeniable. We have to give credit where credit is due in that regard. Career 60% completion percentage, over 50,000 yards passing, 2-time Super Bowl champion, big-time playoff victories along the way, a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. He's in the Hall of Fame. Not in the elite room of the Hall of Fame, but he's up there. He's in there. But in the end, it is appropriate that the New York Giants made this call. It is appropriate that they decided to go in this direction. Because, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we don't want to admit it, the fans are owed something. And if there's one thing every fan should have a license to demand, is hope.
Ravens versus Chiefs, and my job is to score points, so that's what I'm gonna do.
He's got talent around him for sure. I mean, everybody kind of goes to his run game, but he can throw the football.
Mark Andrews, one of the fine tight ends that are loving the offense. Listen, if you're a tight end, you want to be in Baltimore. That is exactly right.
Touchdown, Mark Andrews. And with that, the Ravens break the franchise record for the most points ever scored in a game.
Not bad for a running back.
A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
Friday, covering the Jets-Patriots matchup, part of ESPN Radio's Fall Football Tour. Brought to you by Marathon. Get 5 cents off every gallon every day with Make It Count rewards from Marathon. To sign up, visit makeitcount.com or download the free app. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a veer left a little bit here because I've got a buddy of a few of my buddies on the line. He's got a movie coming out tomorrow. It'll be on iTunes a week from now, and it's entitled 7 Days to Vegas. This guy is, what are you talking about here? The world, poker, the voice of poker, for crying out loud. I mean, the list goes on. His wife is a wonderful actress, an Emmy winner, Young and the Restless and what have you. I'm talking about the one and only Vince Van Patten. He's on the line with us right now. What's going on, Vince? How are you, man? How's everything?
Great, Steven. Great. I'm in New York.
Yeah, what are you doing there? I would ask what you do in New York, but you're a world traveler, and I'll give that to you. I want you to talk to me about this movie. First of all, thank you for being on the show. And listen, I just got to ask you, this movie, 7 Days of Vegas, tell my audience what it's about and what made you decide to do it.
Yeah, it comes out tomorrow. nationwide in exclusive theaters, and like you said, iTunes. You can pre-order it now. But the movie is based on my true story. Some of it's fictionalized, but I had a poker game in the 90s for about 15 years into 2005 that got bigger and better. It was an underground poker game. It was exciting, but this movie's not about the poker game. It's about these players that played in it with me that were crazy, over-the-top gambling guys, and we would bet on all kinds of things. We made nice-sized bets on all kinds of things. We were gambling degenerates. And the craziest bet I did make was that I could walk from L.A. to Las Vegas in 7 days, 280 miles. And they all followed me in a big black RV to see if I would fail or not. And that's what this concept is about. That's what this movie's about. It's a lot of fun. It's like The Hangover meets The Sting, and it's coming out, and we're excited about it.
All right, first things first. A 280-mile walk from Vegas. Now, this is a movie, so like you said, some of it is real, some of it is not. Did you walk 280 miles?
I can't tell you that. I did make this bet. I can't tell you the details. It is a movie. It's an interesting thought, though, because there's a lot of people could do it if they're good marathoners, but that's an average of 40 miles a day, which would be very tough. But this is a comedy. There's all kinds of funny things. They're making side bets in the RV behind me, all kinds of crazy prop bets. So it's a blast.
Okay, you don't have to tell me whether it was 280 miles, but did you do some of the walking? Could you at least tell us that? Did you do some of the walking? Because I got follow-up questions to that. But I need to know if you did some of the walking, Vince.
Hey, listen, we shot the movie in 20 days, and I had to walk about 15 miles a day just shooting the darn thing. And by the way, one of the contingencies in the bet is that I have to do it in a suit. I have to wear the same suit throughout the whole film. And that's what gamblers do. Sometimes they throw something on top of it. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to test your intelligence here. I'm going to test your intelligence here, Vince, because I need to know that did your wife, Eileen Davidson, she's a star. She's an Emmy winner on Young and the Restless. Listen, I'm a General Hospital fan, and Eric Braeden, Victor Newman on Young and the Restless, has got me watching the soap now. So I'm very, very familiar with her greatness as an actress or what have you. But she is the wife. And as your wife, did she dress you? Did she dictate what kind of outfit you put on for this stuff? I need to know the answer to that question.
Of course she does. Of course she does.
Okay.
I wore something about a week ago. I was wearing my jeans that had a couple of patches, and she just gave me that look. She just gave me like, no, you got to change them. So, listen, I'll roll with the punches. She knows better than me, but she's in the film. She plays my wife in the film, and she's a terrific actress. And like you say, I heard that you're on General Hospital now. Congratulations. And I know my buddy Eric Braeden, too. He's a good buddy of yours, right?
Absolutely. He and I have dinner every time I'm in L.A. As a matter of fact, I might see him this weekend. That's my buddy right there. We're talking to the one and only Vince Van Patten right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. His new film coming out, 7 Days to Vegas, comes out tomorrow, shows up on iTunes a week from now. Make sure you all check it out. Let me ask you, was this the craziest bet? I mean, considering your association with poker all of these years because you're big with that, is this the craziest bet you ever made?
Well, it is the craziest bet I ever made. But don't forget, I once bet somebody a lot of money, thousands, that I could beat them on the tennis court, and I would use a frying pan, and I was on roller skates. And I did win that bet. And then I used to make a bet. You'd be interested in this because basketball. I'm not a great basketball player by any means, but I used to have a bet that I could throw from half court. I could make it in 1 out of 10 throws. I had 10 shots to do it. I won that bet. But everybody bet against me. Then they said, okay, you won that. Let's move it down to 7 throws. I won that bet. My number after a couple of years went down to 4. Could I do it in 4? And I could not. I was getting crushed. I would lose a lot of money by trying to do it in 4. 5 was the over and under. So that's one of the bets I made as well. But over the years, crazy prop bets. But the walk to Vegas, 280 miles in 7 days, that by far is the craziest.
Now, give my audience out here, Vince, just a taste of your background. Obviously, you were once a tennis player. You once beat John McEnroe in Tokyo. I believe the year was 81 or 82. But talk to us about your background in tennis and obviously with the world of poker. Just give us some of your background.
Yeah, okay. I'm going into the 18th season on the World Poker Tour as a commentator. I love the job. It's been very good to me. But on top of that, I played professional tennis. I was top 25 in the world. I beat John McEnroe twice, and I played on the circuit for 10 years. Loved it. Tough profession though, because you're really on your own. It's intense. There's no break during the year, and you're living out of a suitcase. So I was glad that when that was out of my life. I was never a very good junior tennis player. No one expected me to make it in the pros. And it was just because I was so aggravated of losing, getting beaten up, getting bullied out there by the other better tennis players, that I finally figured out a way. And I made this great run in 1979 and 1980. And the rest is tennis history. I got lucky. I got through it, and I enjoyed it.
I got to ask you this. As a former tennis player, what do you find yourself enjoying more, men's or women's tennis? Because for me, you know what, it's Serena, so I always enjoy women's tennis because I love myself some Serena Williams. But in the same breath, obviously Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, there's something special. You watch other guys that don't necessarily rank as high, even though they're obviously incredibly gifted. The reality is that those guys are the creme de la creme. What do you find yourself enjoying more, the men or the women competition?
That's a tough question, but I think generally speaking, the men's a little bit more because there's a few more stars there. And like you said, you got three of the greatest of all time, Djokovic and Federer and Nadal, playing in this era for over 15 years against each other. And so I find it fascinating. But you're right, with Serena and that final they had just a few weeks ago at the U.S. Open, just brilliant tennis. And so I love women's tennis too. I wish they played 3 out of 5 like the men's. I think that would be interesting because that's all part of it. But nevertheless, tennis has never been as good. Really fun to watch.
So let me get back to this film, because I really want to talk to you about this 7 Days to Vegas. It's coming out tomorrow in theaters. It's going to be on iTunes next week. You talked about the 280-mile walk from L.A. to Vegas, not the other way around. Yeah. What are the kind of reviews that you've received about this? What have people said to you about this upcoming film?
Well, yeah, and by the way, you can pre-order now on iTunes. That would be great if you did. And it does come out VOD, video on demand, next Tuesday, but it's in theaters as well. But listen, Richard Roper, the famous film critic, took a look at our film, and he's reviewing it tomorrow. And he came to me and said, Vinny, I love your movie. I'm going to help champion the film. It's a fantastic con gambling movie. And so he's very excited about it. In fact, we did a big sneak preview with him a week ago in Chicago. People like the picture. I love the genre of gambling pictures and poker films, but usually they go to the very dark side. It's always about the big game or the darkness of gambling. That's not my life in gambling. Mm-hmm. My life has been a lot of interesting, fun times. People that are eccentric, over the top, like those characters in The Hangover. They were all very interesting and bigger than life. That's what my friends were like, and that we bet on everything and anything. And so I said, if I ever write something, which I did with my partner Steve Alper with this project, if I ever write something, I want to show that there is a magic to the gambling world, that there's joy out there. There's ups and downs, and it's a battle of wits. And that's what 7 Days to Vegas is all about. That's what it's like.
It's up and down, no question about it. But I'll ask you this question. What do you find to be the toughest sport for gamblers to gamble on? You would know.
Boy. Great question. Okay, well, I bet NFL, unfortunately, because I'm a sucker.
All right.
And I bet it. And here's the bad thing. If I handicapped it properly and I really have an opinion, I'm good because I'm a good handicapper. But of course, I'm not. I'm not disciplined that way, and so I wound up to bet 3 or 4 games because I like the New York Jets because I'm originally from Long Island, and I make all these stupid bets.
What?
Yeah.
Why do you do that to yourself, Vince? Why do you torture yourself that way? What are you going to tell me next? What are you going to tell me next? You're a Mets fan too? Is that what you're going to tell me next?
Listen, you can't help yourself. I don't go crazy with the bets. By the way, my wife Eileen found out 15 years ago. She said, why are you watching that football game so intensely? I said, well, honey, as you must know, I have a little bet on it. She goes, really? I won in. I found out that day. She has the bug, too. We go 50-50 with all our action, and it keeps us together.
Wow. Vince Van Patten right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. I find that a lot of times when people are gambling or they're betting, obviously, one of the things that, sometimes emotions can work for you. Sometimes, most times, it gets the better of you. I'm usually at my best when I'm incredibly pragmatic and I'm not thinking about anything. The second I get emotional about anything, I usually pick something wrong. Do you find that to be the case with you and most people who will bet or gamble on anything?
Yeah, it's so true. To be a good sports bettor, obviously you have to have great discipline. You cannot get emotional about it. And usually that team that you're emotional about, you should not be betting that way. I think I made a bet a long time ago against the Lakers, and we live in L.A., and Eileen, my wife, said, "What are you doing? You bet against the Lakers?" I said, "The Lakers don't pay our bills, honey. They don't pay our bills. You got to go the other way." So you got to do that unemotional bet to get out ahead in handicapping, I think, sports.
So what does Vince Van Patten do when he's not playing poker, or he's not being the voice of poker, or he's not making movies? What are you doing?
Oh, man, I love life. I love exercise. I do all kinds of workouts, and I go to Venice Beach. I played basketball up to 6 months ago, 3-on-3 in Venice Beach. I jump in the ocean. I play paddle tennis. So I'm a workout freak. I just love that. Love being outside and getting a workout. I got a big family. I just enjoy being with the family. And that's about it. I play a little poker on the side now, and getting through with this film, seeing that it comes out. People are talking about trying to make a series out of a TV series, so we're entertaining that idea. Yeah. So life is good right now. I've been lucky.
I do think you should entertain that. This, without question, this could turn into a series. You mark my words. As a matter of fact, I predicted, especially with your lovely wife involved. And please, by the way, extend my hello and congratulations to her. She's a 2-time Emmy Award winner, at least as far as my understanding goes. I know she does a great job on Young and the Restless. Eric Braeden, who plays Victor Newman on the Young and Y&R, he can't stop raving about her. Please tell her I sent my best, and thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, man, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, buddy, you take it easy. The one and only Vince Van Patten right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Remember, his movie, 7 Days to Vegas. The man, L.A. to Vegas, a 280-mile walk. He bets his boys that he can do it. You know, obviously they're playing poker, they're gambling, they're placing bets against one another, following him in an RV, all of that stuff. He talked about video on demand next. You can order it now to be in iTunes next week. It's coming out in theaters tomorrow, so make sure you check it out, Vince Van Patten. 7 Days to Vegas. Appreciate him. Appreciate his lovely wife, Eileen Davidson, who stars on Young and the Restless as well. Thank them both so much for coming on the show today. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Back with your calls to close out the show in a minute. That's for my sister Carmen. Love you, baby. Love you, baby. Stephen A. Smith Show. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. If you missed any of today's show, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith Podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Quicksilver Card, earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase, everywhere. Hey! What's in your wallet? To the phones we go before we get on out of here for the day. Jockey, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick. Go ahead, buddy.
Hey, this is the Chicago from
Hello?
New York. How you doing, Stephen?
All right, I'm doing all right. You only got a minute. Go ahead, man. My bad. Go ahead.
Hey, no problem, sir. Listen,
Hello?
Paul Feinbaum. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I couldn't, but go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm talking about Paul Feinbaum's yesterday comments on Cam Newton and how Ryan Clark and Dominique Foxworthy really jumped on him about it. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. How people look at black athletes or non-white athletes and always look at the negatives first, as opposed to when they speak about white athletes, they always talk about the potential and you know how they're such great for the team, how smart they are, or whatever. And it showed in that moment how quickly you can press somebody and really get that conversation started so they recognize what they're doing. I wonder how you felt about that when you seen that happen.
I personally ain't vibing with what you're saying. I think Paul Feinbaum covers the sport of football and has a right to his opinion. And Ryan Clark, if he checked him because he seemed to be more knowledgeable about that particular subject, that's where it goes. It doesn't have to be something where there's a racial divide or everything like that about every single thing. The fact of the matter is, if you're white and you look at something a certain way, there's nothing wrong with it if you are sitting on a set with a black person that has a different perspective and a different point of view. That's what makes the world go round. That's what makes us. That's what makes America what it is. The issues in the past is when you had those people disseminating an opinion or a voice and there was no counterpoint. But as long as there's somebody that looks differently than you in a position to give you a different perspective, then the discussion is healthy. And that's what makes us who we are. Got to get on out of here. Be back in 22 hours. Until then, peace.